everybody. Welcome to the show. I want to welcome and introduce you, if you have not already met, the extraordinary, the incomparable Natalie Renee Perkins. Hello, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Thanks for
Hi,
having me.
thank you so much for being here. So, full disclosure, I have known Natalie since the fall
And-
of what, 1990?
Oh,
Something like that.
that's a long time.
It's been a minute and a half. We've known each other that entire time, and we've been friends that entire time. And that is very cool. And I love that you are one of my oldest friends and dearest friends. And so this is what I know. And so I'm going to tell you what I know, and then I would like you to fill in the blanks, if that's okay with you. Okay. What I know about Natalie is that she is an older sister. She went to Belgium Middle School and Lawrence Central High School. She
Mm-hmm.
went to IU.
Mm-hmm.
And what'd you say?
Jacob School of Music.
Hey, hey, she's an incredible performer. Beautiful voice. We used to sing in corners all the time, harmonizing and such, all the time. And she's still performing, even though, y'all, in the middle of a pandemic, in the midst of a pandemic, she became a reverend in real life. So now she's Rev, and she is spreading the good news all over the place, but especially at Middle Collegiate Church in New York. And so, yeah, that is my brief synopsis. Can you tell me what I left out?
I wrote a book
That's right. You sure did. You sure did. I got it too.
called In Trembling Boldness, Wisdom for Today from Ancient Jesus People. Um, I work with extra canonical texts, which are texts were written around the same time as everything in our traditional canon, but for one reason or another were left out. Often for the reasons that things get left out today, like hashtag patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, so that book is kind of a collection of devotions or reflections or meditations, whatever you want to call them, that use these extra canonical texts as scripture. And
Yes.
I work with those texts because I really do think that reading these texts are written alongside the traditional canon allows us to see things that have always been in plain sight in the canon that we've kind of that we miss, as a result of thousands of years of orthodoxy and orthopraxy that have been stacked on top of them.
Yes. What I feel like, it's almost like a puzzle with missing pieces. And
Mm-hmm.
what your work has done has helped to fill in the pieces. And so
Exactly.
that we get to see a whole picture instead of
Mm-hmm.
fragmented pictures
That's
that
exactly
that
right.
causes.
Yeah, it just fills out the story a little more, right? Of like
Mhm.
um who we know God or who we know Jesus to be,
Mhm.
like how an ancient audience reconciled what they thought God was,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of that is really can be really filling for how we understand the divine now.
Hmm. I love that. I love that so much. So, just right off the top, I want to know, what does the word ally mean to you?
Ally?
Hmm.
So can I just say that I have been shifting away from ally,
Yeah.
more to accomplice.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
So cool that you want to be an ally and you're like on my side, but I actually need someone who's gonna like be in the trench with me, like gonna be doing the thing with me.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Not just like on the sidelines, like go, rah rah sis boom ba.
Yeah.
How do we partner in the fight itself, if
Absolutely.
you will, versus how do we partner in making sure we're on the same team. And I lift up your thing and you lift up mine. No, I need us to both be dismantling. I need us to both be active in it.
Right.
And I need us to be very aware that sometimes dismantling and being active in that dismantling is going to be against what society says that you should be doing.
Yeah.
Gonna look like righteousness doesn't always look right.
Ooh,
Let's say.
I want to write that. Can we put that on a t-shirt? Where can I? I need to put that on the thing. Okay.
Yeah, like everything that's legal isn't moral, everything that's moral isn't legal. We
Yeah.
just had a Supreme Court that dismantled 40 years of governing, and laws that kept us safe. Like, and that's the very legal right thing that they do, but it's not righteous.
Right.
It's not, and it's immoral.
Right.
No.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. I love that we are talking about the distinction of language, because I think that is really important when we are talking about the movement, when we're talking about the fight, because there has been so much harm done in the name of ally, with the name ally attached to it. There's been a lot of harm done. And so there are so many people who don't trust people who identify themselves as ally, and who have sort of taken on that label or that title without it being given to them, or with just sort of like a self-appointed something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Less about the work and more about how I look to other people.
And like the seriousness of that, right? Like thinking about the black squares, media. So cool that you changed your profile to like a black square, but like, what does that mean? Or do you remember
rainbows everywhere last month?
The safety pin movement, where
Yeah,
guys were like wearing these safety pins. I'm a safe guy that you can come, but like things would go down on the train.
right.
And all these men with safety pins wasn't saying nothing.
Right. Right. You're safe with me. Now, I didn't say that you were safe with that guy, but I would never do that to you.
Or like you're saying, like all of those companies that are changing their logos to something rainbow themed for this month,
Yeah. Yeah. So that is one thing that, I mean, I struggle with the fact that I know that this movement or this work that I'm doing is not going to end oppression. But what I do, you and I met several years ago, were on a thread together, and there was a person who was trying to,
Wait, where's the thread? Is this a text thread or is this
I think it was on like Facebook
Facebook
or something.
Facebook thread?
Yeah. Um, it was a friend of a friend that you and I were talking to. And I think that person was trying to convince us that racism wasn't real, or that, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh.
So, so they were like trying to tell us that it was this guy, and he was trying to tell us that it was like in our mind, and that, if we stopped being victims and blah, blah, blah. And I believe that this person was a person of color, but I'm not exactly sure like what that means. But there was something that you said that I feel like is a keystone in my work. And it was, I need you to hear us because we need your help. We need we need you in this fight. We need your help. And that has really been my focus with becoming an ally coach, is that we need as many folks over here as possible. And
you
so
gotta get on the bus.
you gotta get on, right? You gotta get on, and it may have some uncomfortable seats, but you know what? Just stand up.
Or it might not go like all the way where you want it to go, but it's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So you got to
Exactly.
get on the bus. Like, yeah, okay,
Exactly.
it's not this, it's not, yes, it's not gonna get you all the way there,
Yeah.
but it's going that way. And then
Yeah.
maybe to get there, there might be another bus and get us a little bit further down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I really want folks to do is to enter as an ally.
Mm-hmm.
It being like square one.
Mm-hmm.
Allyship, true allyship as square one, but using a cultural humility mindset, which encompasses the commitment to learn more
Mm-hmm.
and to and by learning more, you're doing more. When you know better, you do better, right? And so by being committed to learning more and being committed to using whatever unearned advantage that you have to help progress the entire movement is step one. And what my hope is that it what has happened to me in my ally work is that it has made me hungry for accomplice work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I need to learn, I need to make mistakes, I need to fall on my face, I need to apologize a whole lot. I need to become
Yeah.
really good and comfortable with the humility part of cultural humility so that I can stand strong in my accomplice work also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I love that hopefully that can be a sort of natural progression from allyship, but also kind of taking back, so many groups are able to take certain words back that have been used to harm and to cause pain and change um the meaning behind the word and the effects of the word on certain communities. And I kind of want to do that with ally too. I want to be like, you can't have that name because that's not how you're moving in the world, right? You really need to be moving in the world in a certain way for you to have that name, and you just kind of can't until you move a certain way. But guess what? There's all hope is not gone. You can move that way. And then you can actually be called an ally. You can
Right.
actually have that title and then be promoted to accomplice or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mhm. What is it then that they can claim on their way to the term ally? Is there something?
I think I don't know. And I think
Are
also
they
this
learning?
is very
Are they
interesting.
learners? What are they? I'm just
Right.
curious about that.
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think that, language is subjective and it's very personal to a lot of different folks. But I was actually talking to Aaron about this the other night. Um, Fred Rogers said, when things go wrong, when big life things go wrong, you look for the helpers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I really love that. Um, because the language that we have now wasn't around then. The word
Mm-hmm.
that he had was helpers, right? The people who are in it, who are
Yeah.
using their earned and unearned advantages to help folks.
Yeah. He was talking about like national disasters when kids like
Right.
see some
And
sort of
I
natural
feel like what is happening is a
disaster.
national disaster. Do you
Mm-hmm.
know
And
what
it's
I mean?
so like traumatizing to watch as a kid. Like, how do you process that? And one
Mm.
way helps you still feel grounded and um some semblance of safety, if you will, is, oh, that I see that person is helping.
Yeah,
So that I feel like I totally resonate with what you're saying around like you might not be an ally yet, but how are you helping?
yeah,
And I want
absolutely.
to say you might not be an ally yet, but how are you learning? Like, how are you continuing to do
Yeah,
both of those things, right? Like, you're
yeah,
not contributing to the harm and you're one step closer to being able to identify with the totality of what it means to be an ally.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
maybe once you get there, you can graduate
There it
to
is.
what it
Yeah. I
means.
mean, and that's growth, right? No plant starts out as a rose. It always has to start as a seed, and it has to start underground.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's gonna be dark and maybe a little scary, but
But you're not coming out the way you went in.
Hey, hey, man, Natalie, there's going to be so many
You're not
quotes from
coming
this
out the way you went
episode.
in.
You're not coming out the way you went in. You're coming out so much better. So much better for you and for everyone around you. I love that. I love that. So, do you identify with that definition, the definition of accomplice? How do you identify with that?
Well, I hope to think that I am one. Hope to think. I hope that I am one.
Hmm.
In the work that I do in the world around all of the social justice issues that we combat
Hmm.
on a day-to-day basis. I just marched, for instance, in the Queer Liberation March here in Middle,
Yeah.
here in New York with Middle, with my collar on, as a minister, and
Yes.
heard that this God is queer.
Yes.
Passing out wristbands that say God is queer, and like shouting at the top of my lungs in the middle of this parade, God is queer. Tell everyone, tell your friends, pass it
Tell
on.
your friends.
Like, because I may be the only person that someone ever encounters that helps them realize that the way that you have been told you have to accept God isn't actually true. You do not have to accept the premise that is given to you. You get to define through your lived experience the divine. The Bible tells us, the Bible says, but the Bible does tell us that you work out your own salvation. And that is backed up by, the extra canonical text that I work with. You work out your own salvation through fear and trembling boldness, as I say.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say, because you're the only one who has to stand up at the end of your life and be like, I stand on this,
Yes. And I think that is such a big point that is missed in modern Christianity. I don't even feel like that's what it is, but is that as much as people are pointing fingers and talking about everybody else's salvation, when it's time, everybody else ain't gonna be there. Like you really just gotta worry about your
it's just
own
you and yours. So
situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just makes you sure you are good with what you are saying. You believe. Like, where
Yeah.
does that land with you? Because you're the one who has to hold that
Yeah.
at the end when the lights go out. Candle snuffed. The wave takes us over. Like what?
What is it? What does it come down to? Absolutely. For folks who may have been jolted by the phrase God is queer, can you
Mhm.
explain what that means?
God is clear. So if we believe, right, that we are made in the image of God, that has to include everybody. And
Mhm.
in order for it to include everybody, there has to be um a queering of the divine, a queering of the God, of the way that we have looked at God as white and cisgendered and heterosexual and like male, of a certain age and physical build doesn't actually work. It's gotta be, you gotta twist some
All
knot,
inclusive. Yeah.
right? And in
Yep.
order for all of it to fit in, what are we creating but something that's like queered, if you,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, that includes trans, that includes all of the letters, right? The
Every
living
letter. Right. Every letter, every flag.
LGBTQIA2 plus, like all of it, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so if God is made in the image, then God is then queer.
Yeah.
And we know that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God knew us as an unformed substance
Hmm.
even before we knew ourselves. So
Hmm.
it's not once you get here and the doctor's like, this is what it is. Before that, God knew who we would be,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
that's who you are. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, uh,
Yeah.
or when God was forming, um, if we're gonna play with the story in Genesis, forming the first human,
Hmm.
Adamah, which means human, uh, that was a forming, a formation that God then breathed life into, right? Breathed life into the mud. There's a song called Spark of Creation from Children of Eden.
Yeah, it is.
A bit of the fire that lit up the stars and breathed life into the mud. The first inspiration, the spark of creation. That is what is it in me, that is in you, that is in God, that is in all of us, right? That connects. And then if we follow the story, it's like, then God like separates the two humans by pulling the rib, blah, blah, blah. Then that means that first human then had to hold both, had to hold all. There's a two-spirit nature of the, right? Or a nature of this first person, that had to be that had to be all of it,
Yes, I do.
So there's just all these ways in which the Bible, I mean, and even going back in which the Bible is using plural language that we want to ignore, right? Where God it has been God's, and we're like, oh no, we don't feel good about that, so let's just make it one again. Or the language they is used, or moments like in the first human story, the earthling story there that I was just talking about, or this John passage about just lost my train. Like in the beginning was the word, and the word was made flesh, and the word was all of these things, or the one about oh, my poor brain.
No, you're so
that I was just
so
talking
busy.
about. Shoot, it just left my head. Oh, the fearfully and wonderfully made, and like the substance, God knowing that us is an unknown substance even before we knew. Like all of that is so clear. It's right there.
Yeah.
But we looking so hard for like, few, handful of clobber texts to tell people who they should or should not love.
Right. Or they should or should not be. It's how they should exist on this planet.
Child, we so busy doing that. Like, what to do?
I feel like I'm worried enough about how I am existing on this planet. I just don't have the energy or the time to be worried about how somebody else is existing on this planet. As long as it ain't hurting me, Jesus, okay, then I really am fine with whatever it is that you do. Don't hurt people.
And for me, like, you don't have to hurt me. And like, is it righteous, right? Knowing that things that are righteous sometimes aren't what the law has decided.
Right.
Society has decided is right. Those are two separate things, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that everyone's definition of good is different, right? Like, I always say this about he who shall not be named by me on this, who used to be a president.
Thank you.
His definition of what is good is different than Natalie Renee Perkins' definition of what is good.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. But ultimately, is it bending the moral arc? That saying that is attributed to MLK, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Yes to that, but I'm also wondering if the arc of the moral universe is long and bends towards the good, aka the God, right? So whatever my definition is and whatever that person's definition is, they all have to end up towards this thing. And the fact that we all have diverging definitions of what is good, aka the God, whatever you want to call it, means that it's going to take us that much longer to get there, which is why the arc is so long.
It's so long. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And that knowing makes it very hard to not have just a long, just sad sigh.
I mean, there are those who think, like Ta-Nehisi Coates said, the arc of the moral universe is long and it bends toward chaos. And I don't know that I think that. I think that's what faith is. I think that's right. Is it chaos or is it good? Is it chaos or is it God? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have to understand it. And if I have decided that I have to understand it, then yes, it's chaos.
Yeah.
Because this don't make no damn sense.
Yeah, it looks a whole lot like chaos.
It don't make no sense. What are we doing?
Right.
You know, but if I have trust that there is you know, a higher power that holds and keeps us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That
Mm-hmm.
that gives a shit about me. I hope I can cuss on here.
Please do.
You
Please
know
do.
what I
I
mean?
encourage it, in fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's like, you know, then it's, you know, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be in my lifetime, you know, but everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Yeah.
work.
I mean, and that is
Because I'm working
what,
my stuff out, you know, at the same
right.
time.
And I think it really is us picking up the baton of our ancestors.
That's exactly what yep, that's exactly what I was thinking.
It is really they
And
didn't
what
see
we
it in their
pass
lifetime.
on, right?
Yes. Absolutely. It's the baton that I've picked up that I am now carrying, but I am also prepping B to carry.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
need you to
for
get this
sure.
down the road a little bit further. This is as far as we can take it. Thank you so much for getting on the bus with us. This is our stop.
Right. Right. But I'm gonna go ahead and take it further. Absolutely.
Going on, you know, if you just walk right across the street right there, you can get that bus right there and take it on,
It's
you know,
gonna
the rest of the way.
go keep you going on that right track
Yeah.
for
hmm
sure.
Toward the good, toward the God. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So many people have identified the church as a source of trauma.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, or do you think that there's a way to heal those relationships?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that you get to reclaim.
Ooh,
You get to reclaim what is precious to you. You don't,
uh,
going back to what I was saying, you do not have to accept the premise that has been handed to you,
yeah,
right? Like you
yeah,
don't have to accept whatever the church that you grew up with taught you. You get to interrogate that on your own. You get to find, you know, Google is your friend, man. Google will help you. You
I
get
tell
to ask.
people all the time. Google
Yeah,
is
you get to
great.
ask Google for some progressive churches. You get to ask Google, you know, all kinds of things. And Google might not give you what you want, but you keep searching and
Hmm.
you'll find middle, or
Yeah,
you'll find a UCC denomination, or you'll
mhm,
find, you know, you'll find that there are people who have done the work.
yeah.
We're not just um leaning on their own understanding, lean not onto your own understanding, but in all thy ways, you know,
You
follow
better
God and
preach.
direct your path. Like you don't have to do that. You can find that there are people who have done some serious work to
Hmm.
continue to look at our texts, continue to learn more about the languages in which they were written, continue to learn more about the time periods in which they were written, and continue to retranslate as a result of the information that they learn to be even more clear about what these people were trying to tell us. They
Yeah,
did not write an encyclopedia or a dictionary or a historical account. That's not what they were doing.
right.
They were trying to do a whole bunch of things that just tells us about a people. That was the goal
Yeah,
in collecting this. This is just a light in how we see this other group of people who were trying to work out their own shit too,
man.
you know?
That is, I think that from a very young age, that is what I recognize is that biblically, biblically and all over, we're all just trying to figure our shit out.
Mm-hmm.
Thus grace. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is where grace was birthed inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Recognizing that, oh, we're all figuring it out. Everybody feels weird about their body. Everybody feels weird about partnering up with another human. Everybody feels all kinds of feelings that I thought I was the only one who was feeling it. We're all just trying to figure this out. Okay, grace.
Yeah, and apply liberally, honey. Like
Man,
slather it
you know,
because ooh,
you know. And if that
because I don't know how else to show up to some of the conversations, honestly, unless I do that. I don't know how to do it, Rashida. I
Natalie,
don't know how to do it. Because otherwise I'm gonna be in my feelings immediately.
hard. I have to work very hard to crawl up out of my cancer feelings because I that's where I go first is my feelings. I am a cancer and I be in my feelings. But I have to work to come out of it. And there's a place in my brain, especially like when I do retreats and stuff. like I have to shut off a part of my brain in order to be able to say, okay, this person said this in this space in a very vulnerable way. The worst thing I could do is jump down their throat feet first.
Yeah.
If I really want this to be a learning experience, I need to come to this situation with grace. Now, if they take that and decide to become a victim because I help them see how what they said was harmful, then that's their journey. I can't do anything about it. But it's not because I didn't come with love. It's not because I didn't come with grace, because that's important when teaching, that there is a level of love and grace. And even though it may hurt, the fact that someone is using their emotional intelligence to correct you means that they at least care that you get that thing right. And
Yeah.
that is what I learned a lot talking about being humble. When a 15-year-old queer kid tells you, Rashida, you look like a whole poser, or what you said sounded like you posing, and I know that you on our team, so I need you to get it together. And what I could have heard is, you look like a poser, and sat in that and stewed in that, because that's not what I want to be, and that's
And
not what
look
I
at
want to look
what I've
like.
already done and how hard I'm working. And yeah.
Right. You know everything I do for you
And
every
also
day.
I'm a grown up and how dare you? Yeah, all of
Right. How dare you talk to me like that? You don't know. But
you don't
instead,
know when I've been, nobody knows the troubles I've seen.
right. So what I decided to take away from that is, we know you're on our team and we need you to do better. Cool. Does my feelings get hurt? Yes, because I didn't need to do
Oh, that was
that.
ouchy. Yeah, okay.
It's because I'm a whole human walking around, right? But also, what's most important, or what's most time sensitive, is that I get it together.
That part. And also, like, you can decide how you're going to hold a thing, right? Like, that's really what I'm hearing too. You can
Mm-hmm.
decide how you're going to hold the thing. Somebody can say a thing and it might prick you, but you can decide if you bleed out or not.
Ooh,
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
do. I
wow,
do.
that was the thing you said, but am I going to take that personally? Really is what I'm trying to say. Am
Right.
I going to take it
Right.
personally? That's what's that book? The Four Agreements.
You know I love it. You
It's
know I
not
love it.
personal. It's not about you, boo.
It's not ever. That's the thing. It is never about you. It is always about that person and their lens. Does that mean you're not going to feel it? Nope. But what you decide to do with that feeling is up to you. And it literally has nothing to do with anybody else.
You get to decide. You get to decide.
And that's also with your relationship with God. You get to decide. It's not
Yep.
necessarily, it's not at all what anybody else's lens. It's the same lens, right? It's that same lens that judges people, that tells you see, we all see everything differently. This is what, like, the Four Agreements was talking about. Like, even two people who are raised in the same household, right? So you can think about you and your brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And y'all were raised by the same people in the same household, and the way that y'all approach stuff is just different. Why? Because they didn't have the exact same experience as you. Even though you were all of the same household, raised by the same people,
Mm-hmm.
you just had different experiences when you left the house, even in the house, because the way your parents parented you versus Trace versus, like, everybody
Mm-hmm.
was parented differently, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they learned off of you at first, the oldest girl. They learned from you, and what lessons they learned from you got passed down to your brothers. Um,
But
so
also lived experience of me as like a first child, as me as a woman, as a girl child,
yep.
them as Trace as a second child, as a boy
Right.
child, Jeremiah as the baby,
And like a
later,
far baby, like
later.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of years between you and Jeremiah,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And so your parents were just,
That's what I'm gonna say. I don't know if they would hear it that way. I'm sure they did a lot of great stuff, so I don't want to discredit what they did. But yeah,
yeah, but
super
like there is a
different.
loosening that happens when you get older. There is a loosening
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
happens.
mm-hmm.
And
I hear you.
yeah, for sure. So those lenses create how we see the world and how we see people, right? Those lenses determine how we interpret scripture and how we move forward with that interpretation. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think so knowing that and knowing that what you're receiving is someone else's interpretation and taking that with a grain of salt, however you want to do it, but you get to choose how you react or how that affects you. And that's not what you're told when you're young.
Yeah.
You're told when you're old and you're looking for a connection and you have these people who are super passionate and seem to know everything and
Right.
then you know
When you're young, like that's the whole ball game, right? Is accepting the premise.
yeah,
When you're a baby, you don't know, like all you have are premises that are given to you
yep,
that, okay, so this is what, this is what this is. This is a table. This is a chair.
right,
Here's what you do with that.
yeah,
This is school. Here's what you do with that.
yeah,
This is what little girls do. Here's what you do with that. This is what little boys do. Here's what you do with
hmm
that. You know
hmm
what I mean? And when
yeah,
you feel in your body that that's not actually it, like it's kind of a mind fuck, is what
it
I'm
is.
told. You know what I mean? That like,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why so many people are resistant to new ideas and different types of ways of being
mm,
because I wasn't told about that. That's
mm,
not the way I was raised. I hear that so much. That's not the way I was raised. Out of middle-aged people.
yeah,
But you haven't been raised in a minute. Like you had time from it.
right.
You were
You just
being raised in
accepted the premise and you went with it. You didn't do anything else. But what if someone presents a different premise to you? Do you have space to like allow for that to be a reality too? So
and
like I
does
always
it
think
have to
about,
be frightening? Can you
yeah. Mm-hmm.
just and see how that feels in your spirit? Does it
Yeah.
have to
If it
immediately be
is frightening, interrogate why. Why is that frightening to think about this in a different way?
frightening?
Why is that why is that unsettling? Because it's not affecting you at all. So what is it?
Right. What is unsettling about that?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite quotes is that like, if you don't like gay marriage, then don't get gay married.
Oh,
Like
it's cool. You don't have to do it.
do it.
No
Like
one's
that
forcing you
help
to.
me figure out why you are so, what is it for you? Because I need you to think about that. I need like let's have a little come to
Let's
Jesus meeting
ex-
on that. What's the
let's
problem?
explore it. Let's explore that.
And
Absolutely.
if we could, like, if I were to hand people a premise and be like, accept this, it would be that like the whole idea of sexuality and gender, we are now thinking about it like we always are like, it's a spectrum. But I want to think of the spectrum even wider. Like, I think we often think of the spectrum as like this, right? It goes this way.
Mhm.
But what if the spectrum is also deep and wide?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like in
Absolutely.
any of that, it can exist, not just here, but also here and here. People
Yes.
all the way throughout that.
There's actually something that I want you to look up. It's called the gender unicorn.
Oh,
And it used to be back when I first started working at IYG, it was called the genderbread person. And they just took that out completely. And now it's the gender unicorn. And with the gender unicorn, when it was the genderbread person, sexuality and gender identification, all of that was on a spectrum, but now it's on a line that has a starting point but doesn't have an end. So
mm,
basically what it means is that you can be more or less of this thing, but that doesn't make you more something else. So if you are you know, super feminine. It doesn't make, or if you are closer to masculine than you are to feminine, it doesn't mean that you aren't feminine at all. It just means that that's just how you're showing up in that
Mm-hmm.
at that time. So,
This little, this little
yep.
guy.
That's the gender unicorn. So you see how there's an arrow there now,
Yeah.
where there used to be, when it was the genderbread person, there were two dots. That meant that there was an ending,
Mm.
the
Mm-hmm.
defined start, and there was a defined end. And what we continue to learn about gender identity and about sexual orientation is just that that isn't a good representation of what, or of most people. Most people are more nuanced than a dot here and a dot here with a line in the middle.
I'm a big fan of this. I love this graphic as well because it helps you figure out like where does it live in the body, kind of.
Yes. So I use that with
Fascinating.
my ally training, or my LGBTQ plus 101 training. But yeah, so it helps to understand, because a lot of people, when I talk about sexual orientation, or when I talk about gender identity, especially because that hasn't been talked about historically as much as gender identification, um, that people are like, well, then does that mean they're gay? I'm like, oh, well, we're talking about apples and oranges. Like, they live
Those
in
are not
different
the
parts of
same.
the
These things,
body.
yeah. These
Yeah,
things are not the same. Yeah.
yeah. So
There's
like,
a conflation. We do that all the time, right? Like throughout society around gender and sexuality. We conflate
mhm,
that all the time.
yeah, and they're just two very different
They're
things.
just different. They're
Very
not.
different. So the motto, or the phrase "love period," which is
Well, mm-hmm.
the motto of middle. It literally, so it has had an incredible impression on me. And
Mm.
it is the reason that I have held on white knuckle to middle, and and you, because my homie's there. But but also because that is such a bold and statement for a church to say.
Yeah. Well, you know, the whole quote, that's Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis, which if you are new to middle, y'all look her up.
Look
Um,
her up.
the whole quote is love, period. Everything else is commentary.
Ooh,
That's the whole quote. Mm-hmm. And
everything
she's
else is
talking about,
commentary.
yeah, that's what God is, you know, there's a couple stories in the gospels about Jesus being asked like what's the most important commandment, right? Which of these laws are the ones that, like, you know, there's 216 or something of them, like which one's the most important? And that's like that's a no-no to pick a most important one, because it's a trick question. All of them are equally important. So
Mhm.
the legal people was trying to get him, was trying to catch him up. And Jesus was like, there are two: love God, love your neighbor as yourself. On this hang all the laws and all the prophets. So everything hangs off of love, period.
Love, period.
Mm.
Everything else
It's
is
commentary.
commentary. I love that.
All of it.
So how does love, period, show up at middle?
I'm trying to figure out how love period don't show up in middle.
I heard that.
Like in literally everything we do. Middle church is a multicultural interfaith movement of spirit and justice that's following the way of Jesus, you know, to do a bold new thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's like the elevator speech. If I, you know,
I love
that's
it. It's a
elevator
really good elevator speech. I love that. I really do love that,
That's
because
like,
I do think that that is what I feel every time I come in contact with middle. And I have not physically put my foot in middle church.
no, you haven't.
I was really just there. Why didn't I go to church?
I
It
don't
was a
think you
lot
were there
going
on
on.
a Sunday.
Yeah, I wasn't there on a Sunday, and
You
there was
were
a lot going on. It
you were on
was
a boat or something on the Sunday.
what's on a boat.
Because I think if you had been on a Sunday, you would have come through.
And you know it. I'd have been like, where, how do I
Here
get
we go.
there?
What we doing? Yeah.
What are we doing? Yes, for sure. But I haven't stepped foot in middle, but I am a member of middle, and I do feel so connected. And that just isn't the way that I operate in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Like I am a very like hands-on person, right? I need to feel the energy. But I think what is so impressive about middle is that in Indiana, I can feel the energy of middle in Indiana.
Mm, mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
I
yeah.
can scroll through Instagram and hear you preaching on something or hear Jackie preaching on something and be like, ooh. And I was literally scrolling, like literally the one before that was Beyonce shaking her ass. You know what I'm talking about? And
Yeah.
then you y'all put a whole word in my spirit. And I'm like, yes, okay, and I can, move forward with that knowing. And there have been, you go to church, there are a lot of churches that are very charismatic and that say a lot of things that make you feel really good and connected and closer to God. And I think that's great. But there, for me, I'm saying this very clearly, for Rashida Bonds.
That's for me in my house.
um, the fact that I'm able to get that feeling virtually from middle
Mm-hmm.
is so incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows me how there are no limits to what God can do. Because like, girl, I'm gonna get you, first of all, I'm gonna get you good homie up in this church. And
Mm-hmm.
you just gonna go because you're like, oh, that's my girl. I'm a support. And then I'm gonna get your
And there's gonna be a word
ass.
for you. Then there's gonna be a word for you.
Man.
You're gonna be
It
like, I didn't even know I was looking for this word. It's right
wasn't
here.
even trying. Wasn't even
Here it
trying.
is. Okay, well, I guess this is mine.
And then,
Dang.
thank you very much. Thank you
Wow.
very
All right.
much.
Yes, that's mine.
So, um,
Look at that.
so if people want to know more or experience middle, whether it be virtually or in person, how can they do that?
Listen, there's so many ways to connect with Middle Church. Our website is middlechurch.org. That's an easy win. We worship right now twice on a Sunday. 11:45 is an online worship as of this coming Sunday. 3
Okay.
p.m. is a hybrid worship online and in person. In New York City, we'll be worshiping at Judson Memorial Church at 3 p.m.
Okay.
You can find our worship online at those two times, either on our website, on our YouTube channel, which is Middle Church, or our Facebook page, which is Middle Church. So come, shout us out, let us know that you're there, like say something to me, because usually I'm, digital. I serve as the executive minister for Digital Church.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out, let me know that you're there, say hey. Outside of Sundays, we are on social media and Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I would also suggest following Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis. That's her handle as well. I think it might be Rev Jackie Lewis, but just find her. And then,
Yeah. A lot of times she and middle post at the same time. So if
mm-hmm.
you just get on with middle, you will see one of her
You'll
posts.
see a collab or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Find her. And she is often, she's a national theologian. So she's often on a television show. You might have seen her already on somebody's news network,
Mm-hmm.
dismantling bad theology. Or she is in her own right, like touring and speaking places or she just did an Instagram live with Robert P. Jones, who is a white man who's trying to dismantle some of this bad theology. It takes all kinds. We got to come from all directions at this thing, right?
Truly.
They just had an Instagram live. We're always trying to find a way to make sure that this information is out in the world. 4 words that we use to describe ourselves are welcoming, inclusive, artistic, and bold. So we're always like loudly shouting out, no, that's what it is. Yes, here is how you can connect, be God's hands and feet in the world. Like we're just trying to do this work that makes people feel like the work belongs to them.
Yeah.
And that they can embrace it and run, as you were talking about passing the baton, and run with it.
That's so important, because I think what stops, because I truly feel that it is human nature to be an ally. It is human nature to see someone who is being treated badly and want to do something about it. But there has been a myth or a lie that has been told to us that we don't have any power. There's nothing that we can do.
Can I just adjust that? Not that we don't have any power, but that power is is limited.
Yes.
There's a zero-sum limit, right?
Right. Absolutely. And so
pie, and there's not enough pie to go around.
The scarcity
the limit
mindset
does not exist. Like, what if it was that instead?
Right. The scarcity mindset has done wonders on the society that we are in right now, just scarcity. But I think knowing that when people figure out, I've seen it with my eyes. When people figure out that there is something that they can actually do, it sparks so much forward movement. And so I love that is the point. It
creates momentum. Yeah.
Yes, that is the point. It's figuring out where you fit and doing that thing. I love to use the comparison of your unearned advantages as a Trojan horse to get into places where some other people may not be able to get into. And then you amplify their voices until they can get in there. Then you're like, oh, they have stuff to say.
I mean, that was the whole Obama thing, right? Like he had so many women as employees in his presidency, and they all got together and they were like, we just gonna keep saying each other until he is like, oh yeah, that one, she did have a great idea, until you gotta help, get in there and say the thing.
Gotta amplify the voices. Absolutely.
Middle is very much what is that ideology? An object in motion stays in motion. I think I don't know that we've ever like consciously galvanized around that, but we are always in motion in order to keep the movement going, right? We know that like we're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna figure it out, like you were saying, like you're just aggressively like trying to sort it out, and that means you might make a mistake, but you're gonna apologize just as hard. Middle does that. Movements are messy, but we have to move people.
Yes. And that is a church with a true cultural humility mindset. We're gonna make mistakes, but we're gonna apologize and we're gonna keep going. We're gonna learn from that mistake. We're gonna make different moves in the future, and we're going to keep going, knowing better, doing better because we know better. That's cultural humility. And I love that is the cornerstone of the work that you guys do, that folks can find allyship in a place of worship, and that they can show up as themselves and know that they are loved, period.
Yep. Whether they believe in, the same sort of God that I believe in or not, somebody at Middle once said in one of those join the movements that, their family member is like, how are you joining a church? Like, what? And they were like, well, at this church, God is the placard that holds up the protest sign. You know what I mean? Like that's the unit. So everybody understands the divine in the way that they understand it. Right. But we are all unified in that there's got to be something better than this, what the world is handing me.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. This is so fun. This is what I tell people, like, I really just be nerding out talking about this stuff with my friends. Like we could do this.
We could have kept going, man.
For a very long time.
Have a series.
You know what? I think you're definitely going to be called back, because
yes, I got a call back.
Yes, you got a comment. You're gonna get a comment for sure,
Myself.
because hopefully there will be a lot of questions that we can, once this is posted, people will feel moved to ask questions to
Mhm.
help them on their journey of allyship, but
Yes,
also,
bring your questions, comments, and concerns. Bring the ones
yeah,
that critiques. I want to hear it all. Come on, bring
yeah,
it
but also watch your mouth because we are,
respectfully in Jesus'
thank
name.
you. That's it. But also that. But yeah, like I think people are gonna want to know more. I definitely would. I know that I would want to hear more. So I'll call Natalie back, y'all. She's my friend. That's my homie. All right. Well, I know you have a lot of stuff to do. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us today.
Of
I love you
course, I love
so
you.
much. And I'll talk to you later. All right. Bye.
Bye.